Hi, friends. This is so exciting. You're welcome to stay off camera if you like and just take in what I have to share. Or if you'd like to turn your camera on and show your face. Hi, Laura. Long time no see. This is so exciting for me. I actually was totally prepared for nobody to show up live. I'm like, oh my goodness, there's real people here. How fun. So, thank you all for being here and taking part in this 5-day mini course. I would love, and I put in the chat, I'd love for you all to have the opportunity to connect with each other if you like, because you're all incredible people and you're all entrepreneurs. So as far as I know, so I think it would be really awesome if you had an opportunity to meet some others who are in the entrepreneurial space. So I wanted to give that opportunity to all of you. So please put your contact information in the chat and feel free to reach out and say hello to somebody that you've never met before when you get off this call. My best friend is here, which is really fun, Stephanie. I'd like to introduce you to her. Yeah, so we're going to dive in. And what I do want to share is that I plan to use these recordings moving forward. So if you don't want to be on the recording in something that can be seen by people out there in the world, then please feel free to keep your camera off and to keep any of your interactions in the chat. And that way you can stay anonymous if you'd like to. But if you're okay with having yourself out there in the world, then I encourage you to keep your face out there for me to see, because it's just nice to have eyeballs to connect with. And without further ado, we'll get into the content. So I'm going to share my screen because I created a little PowerPoint for all of you, which Stephanie knows my past loathing of PowerPoints. And I'm happy to say that I had a lot of fun making this one happen. So it just goes to show that, things can change. Things can change. You can love things that you once previously hated. Sorry, just give me a moment here. And before I start, everybody can hear me all right, right? Thumbs up if you can hear me. Awesome. All right. Connect to your creativity. So that's what we're here to do. I think this is such an essential component I have found in really loving what you do and stepping into it fully. We'll talk more about why as we get into what I'm going to share, but how many of you consider yourself creative people? Hands up. Yeah, awesome. We've got a load of creative people. I know not everybody does think of themselves as creative, so it's nice to just check that out. For the overview, and you probably know this already, but this is what I have planned for the next 5 days. I would love to have you here live for these 5 days. Of course, if you can't make it, then that's totally acceptable as well. But if you can, then I'd love for you to be here. And these are the topics we're going to talk about. So today we're going to dive into creativity and creative efficiency. Tomorrow we're going to talk about creative trust. Day 3, we'll get into creativity mechanics. We've got some typos. That's fun. Day 4 and day 5, we have creativity awareness and application. One thing you're going to learn is the value of embracing what's imperfect. That really helps with creativity. So those typos, I'm just going to embrace them. Day 5, celebrating and troubleshooting. So I will say that day 4 and day 5 are a little bit more interactive. I really hope that you can come live to those days, because that's where we're going to kind of take these concepts that we're talking about today, tomorrow, and Wednesday, and apply them more to you and your unique situation. Just to give you some background, although I know many of you, I think, Carolina, is it Carolina or Carolina?
Carolina.
Carolina.
Yeah,
Did we meet at the forum?
Yes.
Yes, awesome. Carolina
It was
and
probably far. Yeah.
the newest ones here today in my life. So to give you a little bit more background, I work as a life coach for entrepreneurs. And so I help purpose-driven folks move from thought to reality so that they can create a business and ultimately a life that they're fully on board with. And I do this by teaching them how to calm their nervous system so they can think more clearly, understand and tap into their creativity so that they can do things their own way, and also recognize their own strengths and progress so that they can connect to their confidence. And I worked for 8 years as an art director in Toronto's creatively demanding advertising industry, which is sort of like, when I look back, it's kind of the magic that's here, is looking back and you can see how all these different spheres of your life can coincide and come together. And I feel like that is what has happened at this point in my life. My work in advertising had me really working creatively all the time. And through that experience, I was able to start recognizing an emotional process that I would go through in that journey of going from thought or idea to creating it into a real thing. So I feel like that was some real practical education that I got in my life. And I'm now taking that and using that as a coach to help other people build more confidence and navigate that emotional journey that comes along with creating anything that's brand new. I also have been a yoga practitioner for 22 years. So since I was 16, I have practiced yoga, and I have been teaching for about 9 years. And I'm a life and mindset coach. So brain and body, I'd like to nerd out on those things. I've helped more than 100 people create change in their lives. And I've done that by building a foundation of self-trust and creative authority with them. So now we'll talk about what is creativity. And I think this is such an important thing to touch base on. We are conditioned to think of creativity as things like art, things like writing or music, acting. These are all things that we would consider creative professions. And for me, I think that something that really opened up in allowing myself to step into my creative confidence was starting to see and broaden what I believed to be creative. So I personally think now that absolutely anything in life is a creative act. I think that me stepping here in front of you and providing this presentation is a creative act. I think if I was to go and have coffee with my neighbor, that is a creative act. And something that is also really powerful to think about is creativity is always a collaboration. It's never just one entity. So I'm going to plant those seeds and we'll move forward. So today I wanted to drop into creative efficiency and really unpack this. This is a concept that I have come up with in how I would describe what is different about those of us who seem to be able to create something from start to finish in a really efficient way, and what's different about somebody who can do that and somebody who I would consider myself to be more like, who struggles to create something from start to finish. And so there were 5 steps that as I started to investigate this, started to see we're a part of this efficient process. And the first step being the being, who is doing the act of creation. And that has a lot to do with identity and beliefs. The second piece is ideas, planning, or strategy. So that's when we start to form these ideas. We start to see what it is that we could create. And the third piece is implementation or action. So that's when we start to move things from our brain into our body and take action to form it. So like this person here sculpting out of clay. The fourth piece is the perception of the results. How are we perceiving what we have now created? Put simply, are we perceiving it as good? Are we perceiving it as bad? Those could be examples of that perception. And then the fifth piece is our ability to review and acknowledge what went well. So the piece that we're going to focus on most specifically throughout the course of this week is going to be that first piece. You'll start to see why. But the last two are also really important pieces. And I'll probably end up doing something similar to this on those two because I think they are so important. What we have tended to do as human beings is we have tended to put a lot of emphasis on those second and third piece. So on our ideas, our strategy, our planning, and on our implementation of that strategy, right? So we focus heavily on what am I doing? Is this idea good enough? Those kinds of things. And I want to just highlight the value and the importance of that first one in particular. And this is why. So if we think about these, rather than that linear structure that I just shared of step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, which is from an energetic standpoint, a very masculine way of looking at things. And I don't mean masculine in the way of men. I just mean masculine in the terms of energy. But it's a very linear way to look at this. And I want you to think of it more as this circular cell-like structure. What is at the very center of that structure is, of course, our being, right? And so everything else is coming from that core center. So the strategies or the ideas are coming from that core center. The actions are coming from that core. The perception of those actions are coming from that core. And then the review and acknowledgement of it is coming from that core. Does that make sense? Yeah, awesome. So when we look at this, two things that I like to really highlight in that core being are the sense of security and the sense of insecurity. So this is really speaking to safety. And if you think of creating something like a book, how safe do I feel creating that? Well, if I've never done it before, I'm going to feel kind of unsafe, probably. If I've done something similar to writing a book, I might feel a little bit more safe, right? So this is, I think, safety is a really important conversation to it. And when we're talking about security and insecurity, we're talking about congruence. So when we are feeling insecure about creating something, our being is not in congruence with what it is that we are wanting. Now, when I'm talking about this, I'm really looking at it from a pretty polarized perspective, but I want you to know it's more of a scale, right? It's never that we're like completely insecure or completely secure. Likely we're falling somewhere on that scale instead. So our being is not in congruence with what we want. If we're in an insecure place, we're leaning more towards that side. We feel unsafe. Creating then feels hard or out of reach, feels like it's this thing that's far away from us. And here's an important piece of this. When it is hard, we make it mean something about ourselves, like we're unworthy or we're incapable. And so we're so much more likely to quit. So the security piece is now, our being is in congruence with what we want. We feel safe and confident in moving towards it. The creation of it comes more naturally. And when it's hard, it's just that. It's hard. We don't make it mean anything about ourselves. We're much more likely to problem solve our way through it. So anytime you are creating something new, I want you to remember that you are essentially creating a new version of yourself. And this isn't from scratch. You have it in you. If you are coming up with the idea to do it, then it is there. And we are essentially just trying to remove reorient ourselves around some of the insecure static that might be standing between you and what it is that you're trying to create. And I think that's an important thing to remember. So insecurity, we can think of it more like static. So it's not who we are, it's just what's there with us. And I think sometimes we get into this mode where we want to get rid of that static, right? We want to get rid of our insecurities. And if I get rid of the insecurities, then I'm going to be confident. If I get rid of this feeling of unsafety, then I'm going to get confident. And I want to suggest or offer that a more efficient way of looking at this could be, what if we can become more secure with our insecurities? So rather than trying to get rid of them, we build a different relationship to them. To me, that feels like a little bit more accessible. And I think it's a kinder way to collaborate with myself as well. So again, this isn't about getting rid of your insecurities, but rather it's about learning how to stand with them. So when I feel frustrated, how can I stand with that frustration? When I feel like I'm doubting myself or I'm doubting that I can do something, how can I stand together with that? So I had that for sure over the past 24 hours as I was getting closer to sharing this with all of you, right? Like all of the discomfort came up, all of the fear and the doubt and the insecurity, and then like kind of angry at myself for deciding to do it because why am I putting, right? All of that came up. And so I could just send an email and cancel the whole thing, or I can figure out a way to stand beside myself and be here through it and know that we're going to be okay when we get to the other side of it. I also want to offer the value, and I mean, this is pretty, I think, pretty deep stuff when you think about it. Like this is healing so much of who we are and what we believe is possible for us. So it goes beyond just creating something into the world. This is really about how you are relating to yourself and partnering with yourself. So as I said, it's a scale. So if you're like, oh my God, I feel really insecure. I want to be building this business, but I don't know how to do it. And they're likely you're not all the way at the end of this scale. Okay, the more we can start to recognize where we are secure and build that, we're going to move the needle forward. And it's not from going from 100% insecurity to 100% security. It's about inching our way forward in the process. And this is really what our job is in creating anything. It's just to help us feel safer in doing it. So I would love to hear from you all what it is that you are trying to create in your life. Is it a business? Is it a book? What is it that you all are creating? You can put it in the chat. Or if you want to come on and tell me, then you're free to do that. Is it something in your business? Like maybe you're wanting to put together a workshop. Maybe you're wanting to put a podcast together. What is it that you're wanting to create in your life? Or is it something outside of your business too? Because that's totally appropriate as well. Business. Yeah. Thank you, Carolina. Online cooking classes and a cookbook. Awesome. Okay, so knowing whatever it is, and maybe you don't know, but start to explore, like on a scale of 1 to 10, how secure and confident are you that what you are creating is inevitable? It's going to happen. You are doing it. And let's just see, like, I think, I mean, I didn't put this into the presentation, but let's do a couple of ratings. So if you were to create this in the next 5 years, where would you fall on that scale of security? 10 being 100% confident and secure. And yeah, let's start there. So 5 years, how much do you believe that you're going to be where you want to be with that creation in 5 years from now? And you can just write that number down. You don't have to share it. If you want to share it, please do. Now I want you to write it down for if you were to create it in a year. And just notice the difference. I'm not saying you have to do it. I saw Stephanie's face. I get it. So we get really, once we bring up timelines, that's when we can start to see the discomfort arise a lot. So that's just something to notice and be curious about. And then choosing whichever you want. So whichever, whether it's the 5 year or whether it's the 1 year, I want you to think about what is giving you the confidence and security you already have. So you can write down whatever thoughts come up. Maybe it's, I know my writing is fairly decent, or I know I have some, Stephanie, sorry, I'm going to pick on you. I know I have some recipes in my back pocket that I want to share with the world. So whatever it is, what is giving you the confidence and security you already have? And lastly, what's getting in the way? What feels like the mountain, or what feels intense? What is bringing in some of the questions that it's possible? Imposter syndrome. That's a great one, Emma. It's funny because I was just listening to, or I was reading an email this morning from one of my mentors that she had sent out. And in it, she highlighted Maya Angelou, who has written many a book, is renowned for her writing. And she has imposter syndrome. So every time she goes to write a new book, she comes up against this wave of insecurity. And so again, remember, this is not about trying to get rid of anything. And it's so normal and natural for us to have these things like imposter syndrome rise up. And learning how to be with that discomfort is so helpful. So we have come up to the time when I'll close today's session. And again, I just want to thank you all for joining me. I'd love to hear from some of you what some of your favorite insights were, or takeaways. My computer has frozen and I've lost you. Here we go. Yeah, feel free to pop them in the chat, or if you want to share out loud. And I'll also offer, like, I'm a big fan of take what works and leave the rest. So if there was something in particular that really lit up your body that you're like, oh, I never thought of it like that, like nurture that insight and see where it takes you. Stephanie wrote, observing the feeling around timelines. Yeah. Love the idea of embracing insecurity. Seems like so much less effort than fighting it. 100%. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Oh, we've got another one. Adding a timeline to the confidence levels. Yeah, totally. And like, isn't that a beautiful thing? All of a sudden we can notice how, oh, maybe if I just add a little time, I'll feel a bit more confident. Like, you get to take whatever time you want. That's the beautiful thing about this. Okay, I'm here if anybody has any questions. Otherwise, you're all free to take off and get on with your day. But thank you so much again for being here. I look forward to seeing your faces tomorrow. And yeah, have a good day. Happy Monday.